When billionaire Marcus Sterling collapsed in the courtroom, gasping for breath as his own lawyer walked away, nobody expected the young waitress in the gallery to hold the key that would change everything. Where are you watching from? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more exciting stories. The mahogany-paneled courtroom buzzed with tension as Marcus Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, sat rigidly at the defendant's table. His empire, worth $12 billion, hung in the balance, facing a lawsuit that threatened to destroy everything he'd built over 30 years. The plaintiff's attorney had just delivered a devastating opening statement, claiming Marcus had knowingly released toxic chemicals into the Riverside community's water supply, causing widespread illness and 3 deaths. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he reached for his water glass, but his lawyer, Richard Blackwood, the man he'd paid $5 million to defend him, was nowhere to be seen. The bailiff announced a 15-minute recess, and Marcus felt his chest tighten with panic as he realized Richard had abandoned him at the most crucial moment of his life. As court resumed, Judge Patricia Hayes called for the defense's opening statement, but Richard's chair remained empty. Marcus rose shakily to his feet, his voice barely audible as he stammered an explanation that his attorney had experienced a family emergency. The judge's stern expression made it clear she wasn't buying it, and she gave Marcus exactly 1 hour to secure new representation or proceed pro se, representing himself against a team of Harvard-trained prosecutors. Sweat beaded on Marcus's forehead as he frantically scrolled through his phone, calling every law firm in the city. But the Sterling game had become toxic overnight. No attorney would touch his case, not even for triple their usual fees. As the hour deadline approached, Marcus felt his carefully controlled world crumbling around him, and he knew that without proper legal representation, he would lose everything: his company, his fortune, and quite possibly his freedom. In the gallery, 24-year-old Emma Rodriguez clutched her worn leather purse tighter as she watched the powerful billionaire's composure crack. She'd taken the morning off from her job at Murphy's Diner to attend the trial, not as a curious spectator, but because she had information that could change everything. 3 years ago, Emma had been a paralegal at Blackwood & Associates before financial struggles forced her to take the waitressing job to support her sick mother. During her time at the firm, she'd discovered something explosive in Richard Blackwood's files: evidence that he'd been secretly working with the plaintiff's legal team, feeding them Marcus's defense strategies in exchange for a substantial payout. Emma had photographed the documents before quitting, but she'd never found the courage to expose the corruption, fearing retaliation against her family. Now, watching Marcus face destruction while his own lawyer betrayed him, Emma felt a surge of moral conviction that overcame her fears. The clock on the courtroom wall showed 58 minutes past the deadline when Emma suddenly stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the marble floor. "Your Honor," she called out, her voice cutting through the murmur of spectators, "I have information relevant to this case that the court needs to hear." Judge Hayes raised her eyebrow, clearly annoyed by the interruption, but gestured for Emma to approach the bench. Marcus turned in his seat, studying the young woman with desperate hope in his eyes as she walked forward with determined steps. The lead prosecutor, James Morrison, objected immediately, claiming that random spectators couldn't simply interrupt legal proceedings. But Emma pulled out her phone and showed the judge a series of photographs that made the experienced jurist's face go pale. "These documents prove that Mr. Sterling's attorney has been colluding with the prosecution, and I have evidence that the entire case against Mr. Sterling is based on falsified information." Judge Hayes called for an emergency sidebar as Emma presented her evidence. Photographs of bank transfers, encrypted emails, and falsified lab reports that revealed the elaborate conspiracy against Marcus. The real pollution came from a neighboring factory owned by the plaintiff's business partner. but they'd manipulated the data to frame Sterling Industries, knowing that Marcus's deep pockets made him a perfect target for a massive settlement. Richard Blackwood had been the inside man,
selling out his own client for a seven-figure payout that would have made him rich beyond his dreams. As the prosecutors examined Emma's evidence, their confident demeanor crumbled, and James Morrison's face turned ashen as he realized their entire case had just collapsed. Marcus watched in stunned amazement as this mysterious waitress systematically dismantled the conspiracy that had nearly destroyed him, but he couldn't understand why she would risk everything to help a stranger she'd never even met. The courtroom erupted in chaos as Judge Hayes announced that new evidence had come to light, requiring an immediate investigation. FBI agents, who had been quietly summoned during the sidebar, entered the courtroom and arrested James Morrison and two of his associates for conspiracy, fraud, and evidence tampering. Richard Blackwood was found hiding in his office bathroom, where federal agents discovered him shredding documents and attempting to transfer money to offshore accounts. As the handcuffs clicked around the corrupt lawyer's wrists, Emma felt a mixture of relief and terror. She'd done the right thing, but she'd also just made some very powerful enemies. Marcus approached her slowly, his eyes filled with gratitude and confusion, as he tried to process how a young waitress had single-handedly saved his empire and his reputation. "Why?" was all he could manage to ask, his voice thick with emotion as he looked at the woman who had just given him back his life. Emma's eyes filled with tears as she explained her connection to the case, how she'd discovered the corruption while working at Blackwood's firm, but had been too frightened to speak up until she saw Marcus being crucified for crimes he didn't commit. She told him about her mother's battle with cancer, about the crushing medical bills that had forced her to leave her career in law, and about the nights she'd lain awake knowing she possessed information that could save an innocent man. Marcus listened intently, his respect for this courageous woman growing with every word, as he realized that Emma had risked everything, her safety, her family's security, her very future, to ensure that justice prevailed. As Emma finished her story, Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives forever. But first, he needed to ask her one more crucial question that would determine whether she was truly the person he believed her to be. "Emma," Marcus said, his voice steady now despite the emotional turmoil of the day, "I want to offer you something, but I need to know, what do you really want out of life?" Emma wiped away her tears and looked directly into his eyes, her honesty shining through as she admitted that her dream had always been to be a lawyer, to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves. But that dream had seemed impossible given her family's financial situation. Marcus nodded slowly, a plan forming in his mind as he realized that this remarkable woman deserved so much more than fate had given her. He told Emma that Sterling Industries had a legal department that needed someone with her integrity and courage, someone who understood that doing the right thing sometimes meant risking everything. He offered her a full scholarship to law school, a guaranteed position at his company upon graduation, and immediate financial assistance for her mother's medical treatment, not as payment for what she'd done, but as an investment in the kind of person he wanted representing justice in his organization. 6 months later, Emma Rodriguez walked across the stage at Harvard Law School's early admission ceremony, having been fast-tracked through their accelerated program thanks to her exceptional paralegal experience and sterling recommendations. Marcus Sterling sat in the front row, applauding proudly as the woman who had saved his life and company took her first official step toward becoming the lawyer she'd always dreamed of being. The corruption scandal had led to sweeping reforms in the legal industry, with Emma's courage inspiring other whistleblowers to come forward and expose similar schemes. Richard Blackwood received a 15-year prison sentence, while James Morrison and his accomplices faced federal charges that would keep them behind bars for decades. Emma's mother, now in remission thanks to the best medical care money could buy, beamed with pride as her daughter achieved the impossible. As Emma received her certificate, she caught Marcus's eye and smiled, knowing that sometimes the most unexpected heroes come from the most unlikely places, and that courage, no matter how small it seems, can change the world in ways we never imagined possible.